The difference between a leader and a manager is a manager gets you to do it because you have to. Sure, a leader gets you to do it because you want to.
They don't empower their leaders to go out and be the hands and feet of Jesus in whatever environment.
If you believe in the concept of our general purpose is to please God and serve you, how do you take your talent and your gift? Jesus wasn't turning over the tables because they were doing business. He turned over tables because they were cheating people, right? So they weren't serving them. They were just trying to make money. It's taught, just like there are Christians who believe you're supposed to be poor.
Right.
That if you have a lot of money, then you're lusting and all those kind of things, and you have to have a vision. If you can't describe to me what 2030 looks like, you won't get there. The greatest tool that Satan has is one word.
What's up, guys? So for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Ricardo Zelaya, and you're watching the Connecting Tables podcast. The heart and purpose behind it is to hear different industry leaders, their perspectives on leadership, on influence, on impact, and talking about transitional periods. And man, today I had a phenomenal conversation with Mr. Elgin Carelock, a community advocate, and we talked about how faith and business historically are divided, how he has a mission to intertwine the two. We talked about how God, the creator, created us in his image. Therefore, we are creators ourselves. So many powerful points, man. I cannot wait for you to listen. So hang on all the way to the end. You're going to have so many nuggets that are applicable to your business and to your nonprofit, to your family. The list goes on. Y'all check it out. Position. I go from ministry to real estate, solopreneur.
Yep.
It was brutal. Sure. As it relates to in the environment of high collaboration, creativity, to like, I'm doing this all on my own. What do I do? And fast forward 2022, great successes. We making more money than I ever would imagine. And I almost left the real estate industry. Because I there was this feeling alone was that I couldn't take it. My buddy said, man, let's go to Texas. Let's go to Texas and go to a conference. Real estate conference, mind you. Sure. Every keynote speaker during that conference didn't talk about real estate. They talked about impacting their community.
Yep.
And wow.
If it's realized that's a biblical principle. Like I say, take care of people.
Sure. But see, and this is why Connected Tables exists, and I'm going to share this. Connected Tables, especially this platform, is to help in that transition, hyper niche those who maybe all they know is vocational ministry.
Yep.
But to have so much more in them, yet they only think it applies to the four walls of the church.
Correct.
I want to speak to those people.
Yep.
Because you said it earlier, as far as love God, serve people.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean only in the context of the four walls. That's church, right?
That's right.
The landscape owner can love God, serve people, and how he treats his clientele.
That's right.
Right? It doesn't matter the industry.
That's right.
And I want to help people who maybe feel stuck. I call them the golden handcuffs, specifically in ministry. Why do I call them that? Larger churches specifically.
Yeah.
They do such a phenomenal job subliminally making you feel as though your only purpose, and we said this early, is to serve at the capacity that you are serving in the four walls of the church.
Right.
They don't empower their leaders to go out and be the hands and feet of Jesus in whatever environment.
Yeah. So you can say it very simply. Jesus said, go. Abraham was told, go. Right? Hey, let's tell them, go. Nothing said anything about, you don't even hear the word church anywhere in there, okay? Right? So, and I had people always call me bishop, apostle, all this. And I say, and what's with the titles? No. The only one that had anything close to that would have been Paul. Sure. Okay. I mean, Luke was a doctor, sure. Right. But the point was there was no prereq that you had to go to seminary to serve people.
And based on what I know, and I can't wait to continue to get to know you. Based on what I know, Jay would share with me as far as even your strategy, your business strategy, you're a strategist.
Yes.
You go to nonprofit and for-profit businesses.
Both. Yeah.
Teach them how to operate their business maybe more profitable, when you cut expenses, help them grow.
Yeah. But both individually and corporately.
And you do that with Christian values. Yeah.
For sure.
Okay. Sure. I want to ask, how do you do that? So what do I mean by that? So I'll back up.
Yeah.
Do you first say yes to those companies who want Mr. Carelock to be the strategist, who first say they're Bible believing Christians? Is that a prerequisite for you to say yes? Or they can be someone who doesn't necessarily profess Jesus, but maybe based on how you communicate to them, they're like, wow, those values are really awesome.
Sure.
Like, do you say yes to those type of clientele as well?
So yes, and generally what happens is I'll have at least 3 conversations, so that I can clearly understand who I'm talking to, and from that I kind of make the decision, because it's a combination of things. I mean, there are believers who won't do what I say, or advise, and then there's non-believers who do,
Right.
so gotta eat, but at the same time, what I don't do is I don't compromise. So if anything you're asking me of requires me to go against anything that's in the word or that Jesus taught, then we're done, right? We're done right there. It doesn't matter how much. Sure. And I've said so to people who underpay me $10,000 a month because it just didn't align. If I have to compromise, it's not worth it.
That's good. So one of the biggest pressing things we talked about, helping specifically people maybe in nonprofit or church environments, the association of pastors, leaders, so forth. Help them believe and understand that their impact can be beyond the four walls of the church.
Yes.
Okay, that's burning. I recently had a great friend of mine who served as a worship leader, great vocalist, great for 18, 19 years. It was in a transition and wanted to start a side business. And specifically when it comes to like marketing, similar to Define Media, but maybe not so much of the videography, that stuff.
Sure.
But his belief was that, man, my skill set, all I know is church. I don't know how to apply that.
Sure.
How to communicate that. What would you say to that person?
Oh, simply, if you believe in the concept of our general purpose is to please God and serve you, how do you take your talent and your gift to serve people? And let's look at that. And then once we figure out how that path is created, how do we monetize it? Right? Instead of going into it as how I make money, knowing how to do this. Because if your focus isn't serving people, you're going to hit a ceiling pretty quick, right? Because what'll generally happen is they'll underprice to try to get people coming, and then they'll get locked into the hamster wheel, right? Because you always have to keep adding all of these jobs because you're not charging enough.
Right.
So I said, all right, so what did you do in ministry? And let's say, let's
use that as an example. Let's use that as an example.
So, we have so many young people who believe that they're the next, Lamar or the Weekend. Right? What happens if he started a coaching business on singing? Right?
Yeah.
And whether they're going to be secular music or religious music, there's lots of them out there. You could tour around to the smaller churches, let's say between 50 and 100 members, and go in and offer to come and tutor them in singing, because most of these small, they usually aren't led by a person with always musical acumen. Just could play piano.
Right.
But they couldn't take that person and teach them, you know what, that's not your key. E flat's your key. And we're only going to play in that for you. They're not always that. Sure. And then he could come in and offer that services, right? So we look at the menu of what he could do and say, all right, how does this serve? And then how we monetize it. And that will be really the path that I'll take down.
That's good. So are you anything like me, Mr. Carelock, where you experience some of that? I'm going to call it as it is a holy frustration.
Yeah.
it's the subliminal that to that worship leader, all you can do is lead worship.
Right.
Or to that children's pastor who loves the building program, but all you could do is that in this context.
Sure.
Have you experienced some of that, like that leak? And where does that come from? Have you been able to pinpoint the source? Like
Almost always is tradition, right? So that they were taught that way. I'll give you a quick example. When I teach a Sunday school class, I'll say, "Hey, has anybody heard the expression "spare the rod, spoil the child"?" And they say, "Well, yeah." And I said, "Well, what does that mean?"
Right.
They says, "Well, if you don't beat your kid, you'll be spoiled." And I said, "All right, so let's look at it from a different view." So when a shepherd leaves with 100 sheep, his goal is to come back with 100 sheep. In Hebrew, spare means not use, right? So if one of the sheep goes off and he doesn't use the rod to guide it back, he'll lose it. Totally not violent.
right.
So, but they were taught the other way. So that's what, when you ask for the answer, that's the answer they did. That's how they were taught. So the limiting beliefs are generally either taught or some sort of trauma. Where someone's saying to you, "You look just like your daddy. He wasn't nothing to you," right? So either some sort of trauma or usually a tradition. So what we do, or what I do, is I try to backtrack to find out where the origin is, and not necessarily where I'm being a psychiatrist, as I am more along the lines of Socratic question, right? Yeah, why? Yeah, why is that? I believe it this way. Why? Right? Because I was told it's why, right? And all the way down to where we can't ask why anymore. Then we find out what it is, and now we can start rebuilding from that point.
That's good. So okay. So for that person who would watch this, who is that person, that individual who believes these things because they've been taught, and they can't quite answer the question, yes, why? What would be a good starting point for that person?
For them to really list out what their passion is, right? When I hear you talk about that inner burning, right? And so let's find out what that is.
Yeah.
And then how we use the person that they are now. Because it's not necessarily that they have to make this huge transformation. As it is, they have to start doing the things that limit. Because if you truly believe that God sent you here or called you here for a specific purpose, think about it like a manufacturer.
Yeah.
Right? Ford doesn't put their label on there until that car has been tested, proven, tested again, and then they send it out. So if you're on Earth, then that means everything you need is on the map, or he wouldn't have put his name on it.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good, right? So now, yeah. So now let's find out what that is, and then that limiting belief usually will always root back to fear, and so we have to have opportunities where we're coaching past the fear, and it's not necessarily, again, that you have to be a mental health counselor, sure, as it is a good list. And then if you do have an instance where they need to see somebody professional, then you do that.
Right.
But most of the time, it's either fear of failure or, believe it or not, fear of success. You know, if this jumps off the way I think it will I be ready? And they start to self-doubt, right? And so that's what we do, is we really start to draw a profile of who they are and what they believe about them. Because no one talks to you more than you do. It's good, right? And so if they're not giving themselves the type of positive affirmations, it's just going to be very difficult for them to transition, because invariably you get an uphill part, right? And it'll just make you quit.
Would you say this? So I don't know who it was, maybe Craig Rochelle. I'm sure you've heard handle. He said he starts every morning with declarations.
Sure.
He audibly says these declarations, and I thought that was so profound. And when you're confirming that, so would you say a good practical advice to that person is, man, just declare 5 truths, 5 things you know to be true. And again, we're talking specifically people who believe in Jesus. Yes, all right. So you love Jesus, or his mercy is new. The declarations.
Yeah.
Would you say start with 5
declarations, maybe even just 2.
So just start with something that you would
Absolutely.
audibly declare. to kind of help that limiting belief, that's your fear, like
And
and self-empowerment, if you will.
and not even just a declaration. I'd rather you do it in the mirror, right? So we could give you an example. So over the last year, I probably lost maybe 45 pounds or so, right?
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you. But it was primarily due to my body saying, "Hey, these foods right here, we're not doing that." Okay, and so I started crossing foods off, and it just so happened by doing that, it made me lose weight. I wasn't trying to go, all right, and so I found a natural solution that kind of fixed my stomach problem, so I could eat out some of those foods back. Right. So of course I had like a week of just going bananas. And I went over a year, couldn't eat pizza, couldn't eat fried chicken.
Just because I just wouldn't sit with my stuff.
Right. So I found something that would, and was like eating crazy over a couple of weeks. And I went and stepped on the scale and I gained like 4 or 5 pounds. And I walked over to the mirror, put my nose on the glass, and I say, "Bruh, you're not doing it. We ain't doing it. You hear me? We're not doing it." Yeah. So all of it's gone now. But but you shouldn't say, I mean, right to you, because no one talks to you more than you. And I said, "Bro,
Right,
we ain't doing it.
right.
We ain't doing that."
That's good. And often we're on worst enemy.
Correct. But that level of accountability to yourself. Because how are you going to help others when you're a wreck up, right?
Sure, it's good. It's good. The next thing I want to ask you, specifically when it comes to the struggle and the tension,
Yes.
for-profit business leaders, church, nonprofit leaders, there tends to be this line. What would you say? How do you integrate the two? Integrate the Christian values, and I own a manufacturing company. Integrate the Christian values, and I'm a commercial banker. What are practical things? And then, like, back to the belief, there shouldn't be a distinguishing line, right?
Correct. There shouldn't be, right? So if we're going from nonprofit to for-profit,
Yeah.
the first thing that I remind them is that 501c3 is a cash designation. You are a business.
I said the same yesterday. I was almost yelling at Jay because I'm like, man, I've heard this. I literally have heard this, that a nonprofit who has money in the bank is almost like its own sin. It's like,
Wow.
guys, you have to understand, it's exactly that. It's a tax, it's a classification. That's it. A nonprofit will cease to exist if they're not profitable. If there's not a surplus for them to do the mission, to do the.
Of course.
That's the dumbest thing I've heard.
Of course. But it's taught. It's taught. Just like there are Christians who believe you're supposed to be poor.
Right.
That if you have a lot of money, then you're lusting and all those kind of things. And I saw a modern day translation of what Solomon was worth.
Okay. Yeah.
In today's money, he was worth 500 billion. Because so God obviously doesn't have a problem as you have in money. Obviously, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
And so as we transition that, it's like, all right, we're going to apply the same principles that would make a for-profit business successful to a nonprofit. Only difference is the core value system is simply Christ as opposed to the world, right? So if you're that manufacturer, instead of thinking about how many units down the line and how profitably, it's of my 150 employees, how do I put the most value into their lives?
Yeah.
Right. And so is that through pensions? Is that through shared earnings? Is that and any of those kind of things? And then we take the structure of the strategy, put the Christian worldview in it, and then implement it as a way to grow them. Because the natural tendency when you do something for somebody is that they reciprocate. So that's why we say that the difference between a leader and a manager is a manager gets you to do it because you have to. Sure, a leader gets you to do it because you want to. Right. So when you mentioned your previous church, I was sitting in there one time and he asked for a pretty healthy amount of money. And within 2 weeks, he had it. Why? Because he pours into his people.
Right.
So it makes them want to reciprocate.
Sure.
And they just happen to have the ability to. Right. And so that is really what we have to teach them, that it doesn't change, but business principles doesn't change. Jesus wasn't turning over the tables because they were doing business. He turned over tables because they were cheating people. Right. So they weren't serving, they were just trying to make money. Right. And that is the problem. So that's why, if you think about it, what am I saying is the fastest dollar is the dollar you chase. But if your goal is value and adding to people's lives, it's why there's a difference between Chick-fil-A and some of the others. When you go there, you honestly believe they want you.
Right.
Right. They honestly are there to serve you. Or the difference between Publix and Walmart. Right. You feel like they actually want you there. So price becomes immaterial.
Sure.
Yeah. And so if we get them to understand that and not chasing dollars,
Sure.
then they'll see the growth that they're looking for. And they could easily make that transition.
So you would say the emphasis on serving, some may call it even like Uber hospitality,
Yes.
right? It's how people feel
Yep.
with the experience. That's good.
I mean, Jesus was the ultimate brand ambassador, wasn't he? Right. And then he used influencers called disciples. Right. So nothing new under the sun.
You gotta say that again. That is good. Say that again.
That he's ultimately was the ultimate brand ambassador, right? And your disciples were his influencers. Right. He just sent them out into the world. Jesus knew about AI, but if he tried to explain it to you 2,000 years ago, you looked at him pretty strange. Right? Not the jerk found. So we're going to take those same principles and just understand that it's, the word says, give and it shall be given. Right? So how is it going to be pressed down, shaken over if you forgot to give, Craig? So when you are dealing in the marketplace and you're giving your product or service to somebody, you are asking them, in return for what I'm going to give you, the value that I'm going to give you, will you pay? Right? So if I ask you right now to describe the best meal you ever had in a restaurant, you could probably do so. But what you'll also see is if I say, well, how much does that meal cost? And you'll say, I don't remember, what? Because it's immaterial. Sure, right, sure. Once you exceed the value to that person, then cost doesn't matter. Right. And that's why we try to keep those entrepreneurs out of that, because your natural thought is, oh, that's too much. I can't ask that much. People can't pay that. You don't live in anyone's pocket.
Right.
So build the value, show them that you care and that you genuinely care about their quality of their life being enhanced by whatever product or service that you're giving them. So the price of it doesn't matter.
That's good. So for that new entrepreneur, again, in that transition,
Yes.
would you say, so for that new entrepreneur to establish their fundamental or foundational principles, their core principles, because then how they're going to do that, I guess, would follow.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What, then how, and then to whom, right? Because all you really have to do is find the people who then agree. Because if you ever want to drive us to Carelock crazy, just tell me that your product can be used by anybody and everybody, right? Wrong. It's mine. But you know that Mercedes-Benz only sells 18,000 cars a year. But that's it. Ford sells 3 or 4 million.
Right.
Rolls-Royce only sells 3,500. That's it. So if it's not that you're being exclusionary, as it is, you truly understand who your customer is. And then as you educate more, right? No one asked to pay $5 for a cup of coffee. Starbucks curated that. Right. And so that small, especially for a solopreneur, who are you talking to? And if they can't answer you, right? So yes, get your core values together, but then the next one being, what problem do you solve? And that's usually the one that snags them first.
Sure.
Right? Because you say, all right, I want to be a realtor. And you say, well, what problem do you solve? No, people are looking for houses. No, that's the tool you're using. What problem are you solving? And if they can't answer that, it's going to be a long road.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's good. So establishing the core principles, become master problem solvers.
all the time, right? And so the reason why I asked you what problem you solve is because that really aligns to purpose. What is the purpose of you hanging the shingle saying, "Hey, we're open"? Because purpose leads to a vision. So if I know my purpose is to help the families that were moving out of an apartment into a first house, that's my purpose. Then it's going to give me a vision, and so that vision could be podcasts, workshops, ebooks, all these kind of things. But and now that vision will lead to focus. How do I now bring this in to the audience that I need to? And then focus leads to mastery. And then mastery is where you make the most money. What happens is people just want to jump from start to master. Sure, and they end up having to go get a job.
That's good.
Yeah.
Now, so we talk about vision. So now I want to ask questions about that person thinking for future. So as it relates to foundational for us, like by way Jesus follows,
Yes.
faith, how do you see relationship between faith
Yes.
and business
Yes.
develop or evolving over the next decade, next 10 years? Yeah, because do you see a hype? Do you see an awareness now more than maybe in the previous years? Not necessarily Christian,
Right.
but even maybe a slight bend towards spiritualism.
So
Have you seen now you got this new age stuff,
yeah,
but like
it's spiritualism, yes, but not necessarily Christianity. Right? Because we've gone into a mode where we're accepting of everything. And so the level of creativity and expressiveness that we see, especially in Gen Z and the millennials, allows for a lot of different things. And so for us as Christian business people, it is a fine line. Because I want to be accepting of you, but I can't really have us having conversations outside of my core values. Now, I mean, I don't have a problem with it, right? Or when I've had conversations with people who are agnostic or atheists. I just actually didn't believe, and it's not a problem having to answer questions for them. But what we have to understand is that as we move into the marketplace as that solopreneur, and especially if we're transitioning from a church kind of setting,
Right.
that there's just boundaries.
Yeah.
Right. So in answer to your question, it's not that I see a move more towards spirituality as I see a more creative person. And so within that creativity, they're seeing all of these options. And so whether it's other faiths, a gentleman that I'm doing business now, he told me, he said, I was Presbyterian, I was missionary Baptist, I was CODIC, all those kind of things. Why? Because he didn't identify with one specifically. No one reached down to where he was and said, this is the way that we do it. And again, the same is going to be true in the marketplace.
Yeah.
Right? There are certain vehicles you wouldn't drive because they don't have a good reputation. There's certain vehicles you wouldn't drive because they have a certain expense that you don't see the value in.
Right.
Right? So it's going to be the exact same. So you have to just understand, once again, who you are. It's the same thing I used to tell my kids when they were coming up. In terms of relationships, you can't be a good we until you're a good me, right? If I don't understand who I am, then it's going to be hard for me to give you the kind of transparency that's going to make you trust me, because what you hear today may not be what you hear 2 days from now.
That's good. That's good. So then that goes back to the
2 minutes.
the evolving of faith into the relationship to faith and business. It's just that kind of at the beginning where we talk about, you love God to serve people.
Yep.
So you take that wherever you go.
Everywhere. And it'll also help you with your decision, right? So that whole movement that said, what would Jesus do, was really designed so that your decision making gets a little better. Because if someone offers you money for a certain task and you say, well, what would Jesus do? Well, I don't think Jesus would do that. Okay. And so it was kind of like that. And if you use those two as your guardrails, how am I pouring value into this person, or how am I pleasing God by doing this? Uh, it'll eliminate a lot of things, and so that becomes great. So now you're able to make decisions, and the difference between a decision and a choice is that a decision means nothing else is considered. This is how we do it. Whereas a choice is I can choose this today, I can choose that tomorrow. And so you get back and forth. And unfortunately the clock never stops. So what happens is you find yourself, at 45 go, wow, I think you're here. Well, because you're being pushed back and forth because you didn't make decisions. You were making choices. And since you didn't have that guardrail, it's easy to carry you out. Sure. So you're a person that started a business on your own, and who you decide to listen to really charts how quickly you get to your vision. And you have to have a vision. If you can't describe to me what 2030 looks like, you won't get there.
Well, okay. Mr. Carelock, so obviously we're living on time. We can talk all day long, and there's so many questions. And obviously, this is just the beginning. I hope, at least, absolutely, you want to have another. You want to just become friends. I'm all about that, man. Relationships beyond a given moment. But we're just grateful. From what I know of you, and what I hear from Jay and guys like Jamie and Henny, you're a staple in this community. And so thank you for however many decades ago you said yes to this community and yes to serving it.
Yeah.
I believe, whether I realize it or not, and I think I'm realizing it now, that I'm a product of your yeses decades ago to how you serve this community, and then the people that I've come across, my mentors, I'm sure, were positively impacted by something you've done directly, indirectly, within this community. So, I mean, seriously, I really mean that, man. And I look forward to, I know you got some incredible business that you're launching to help churches, and I cannot wait to see where that goes. And if, I could be a test for you or something, a beta test, or
Absolutely.
I'd love to be a part.
Oh, absolutely. I definitely want to have some conversation with you about that, because the implementation piece is always the hardest, right? It's awareness first and then implementation. But absolutely.
And then for that leader in that transition,
Yes.
what are 10 words you would just share to that leader who's struggling with their belief that they're stuck and there's no way out?
Trust God.
Yeah.
Stay the course, and understand you were built for it. Right? The greatest tool that Satan has is one word: doubt.
Wow.
I don't have to do anything but get you to doubt it.
Right.
Because if you doubt it, you'll stop. And he doesn't have to get you to co-opt his path. But if I get you to doubt, I can be certain that you're not on God's path. And that's all he's looking for.